everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of Stash Report from the Stash Project. It is July 19th, 2021, and we are here, live online, still. I think we've cut down every tree that could possibly fall on our cable line. Or has fallen on our cable line over time and has been subsequently cut up on the ground. So, with that in mind, let's dive into this week. So we have some September spot run announcements from Aoshima. We also have the August kit announcement from Salvino's JR. A few other little odds and ends in terms of new kit development and things of that nature. And then, of course, we have a few kit releases this week as well. Next week's video might be a little on the light side, only because this weekend, of course, is the beginning of your opinion may vary of the ill-fatedness of still holding the Summer Olympics regardless of the conditions on the ground in Japan regarding the coronavirus. But yes, that's starting this weekend. And the Japanese government has given everybody a 4-day holiday. Should have been last year, but of course the Olympics didn't happen last year. But yes, basically it's a 4-day, starting on Thursday, holiday to celebrate the Summer Olympics. So everybody, I'm assuming, could have gone, but that's still never quite worked itself out over there. But at least everybody can turn on TV and watch, I guess, the Olympics opening ceremonies take place in the first couple of days of the games and things of that nature. So we'll see what exactly we wind up with for the next videos as far as Japanese kit releases, because they're only going to be working on basically a 3-day week in terms of the release time over there, because most Japanese shops aren't open on weekends anyway. So they're especially closed this coming weekend. So, at Aoshima on the September spot runs, again, nothing new here, just restock, reshelves here. 2015 rather, Lamborghini Aventador Super Velocity. 1999 Mazda MX-5, second gen. Remember, this version is the one that does silently, but thankfully, carry the left-hand drive parts so that you can build yourself a export spec, US spec second-gen Miata. It is the only kit that exists of a second-gen Miata with left-hand drive, so if you're still sort of kicking that around, that would be the kit to find. It was reissued, 6 months ago or so. It shouldn't be hard to get a hold of, but they're apparently getting enough orders to justify running a few thousand more off. Reissue of the 1990 Toyota Century, reissue of the 1991 Mitsubishi Delica Star Wagon, reissue of the 71 Nissan Skyline 2000 GT, reissue of the 82 Toyota Celica Double X in its just factory street appearance, no Grand Champion stuff attached to that. Reissue of the 1999 Nissan Silvia Spec R, reissue of the 1998 BN Sports Toyota Mark II Tourer 5, reissue of the 1999 Nissan Silvia Vertex Edition, and then 20-inch wheel sets for the Works Schwartz and the AVS Model F7s, and then reissue of the Wing Parts Volume 1, Wing Parts Volume 2, and what they call the Wing and Custom Parts, which has, I think, 2 wings that are not in the other 2. And then there's a tack and a racing seat and a couple of little other tuner odds and ends involved in that. So those will be your spot runs for September. On the Salvino's kit for August, we're going to leave Richard Petty alone for a moment and pop back over to Rainier Racing for the 1981 Buick Regal Charlotte winner. This is going to be a Bobby Allison car again, and should just be a reissue of the Regal kit. Nothing really to write home there about. They'd be the old monogram kit with a new set of decals included inside of it. So for the, early 80s vintage NASCAR fan, another reissue coming for you. So that'll be coming in August. We have this development picture, which isn't the greatest thing, I admit, but it's what I have to work with, so it's what you get to see, of the upcoming Revell Germany, or Revell Home, however you want to look at it. I think now they own the whole company. Upcoming Porsche 911 G model, which of course was made between like 74 and 85. This appears to be somewhere in the mid to late 1970s. It'll be a 911 and a 911 Targa. These kits sort of slot into a position between all of the Fujimi Enthusiast Series kits, because while the Fujimi did make 70s Enthusiast Series Porsche 911s, they were all Carrera and Carrera 3.0s, which are the racing versions, so they were the street versions of the track cars. There were no just sort of factory 911s done in that time period. Fujimi's earlier ones from the 1960s are the generation prior to this, the ones from 1985, are all turbo 911s, so they're again not quite what this is because it's a naturally aspirated version. So I find it very amusing with that graphic of them saying it has a detailed interior, showing me a 3D prototype that has solid windows. So I'm going to take their word for it. It does looks like it's going to have a full detail engine in it, as well as what they're calling an authentic underbody. So that is coming this fall. Normally, you get your Revell Germany new tool kits somewhere in the neighborhood of like October, November, December. Our when we get them here is totally up in the air. The Jaguar E-types. Michaels has the U.S. Reeboks, but nobody else does for some reason. The Cabriolet was available through a few U.S. retailers who all seem to have gotten a case, which in case of Revell Germany gets is 6, and then they sold out of them. There does not appear to be an official importation of that kit as of yet, which I assume that they're going to do. I assume that a lot of this, and again, there's a lot of ask you meing here, but I'm assuming that a lot of this has to do with the merger of Revell's U.S. operation and Carrera's U.S. operation, the Slot-Car company that we had talked about a few weeks ago, merging the warehouse from wherever the third-party logistics places in Illinois down to Atlanta, where the Carrera warehouse already existed. So that's probably causing shipping delays beyond the normal shipping delays that we're already dealing with because of lack of containers and lack of capacity on ships. So it'll get here when it gets here, kind of thing. But like I said, that Porsche should be sometime in the fall. And then from Fujimi, and again, a name we don't mention a whole heck of a lot on this show because they've really been doing too much car-wise the last year and a half. They've announced that they're going to do this. And what this is a Mazda T600. People may recall there are KA models that a Mazda K360, which is what this is, only a shorter wheelbase, sort of personal use version. The T600, which you may recall Academy has already released, if you pay attention to the other channel. I think we mentioned it here as well. This is the commercial version, right? It's a longer wheelbase, it's a longer bed. Otherwise, the kit is pretty much identical. There's not really a whole heck of a lot different between the two, other than the length of the overall length of the wheelbase, and then, of course, the overall length is used by a larger bed in the back. You guys may recall, if you watch the channel, my Academy T600 came pre-smashed for my inconvenience. The cab was not put in a little cardboard box the way KA did with their T360s, or K360s rather. And so my cab is mutilated. My Korean eBay person did not feel like replacing the kit or getting me a new cab, so bleep them. And so this will be for January. Now, I don't know why we're announcing this 6 months in advance of something that already exists. There must be a production agreement with Academy that Academy gets to sell this kit for X number of months themselves before to be released by Fujimi as, I don't know, targeted to more of a Japanese audience, I guess, because technically speaking, Academy doesn't really sell kits. I mean, military-wise, yes, but the car kits, like, they don't really sell the car kits much out of Korea. They sell them in Japan, and they sell them a few other places. And there are some hobby shops. My local hobby shop actually has gotten a couple of the Academy car kits in after I've mentioned them to the owner, but like they don't really push that far outside of South Korea beyond like the military stuff. The military kits are a little more well known. And then KA was an aftermarket company. They really didn't push the K360 very hard because they're a small company. They just don't have the reach. And then coronavirus hit, and then their customer service sucked all form of ass. So Fujimi is the bigger company, nominally speaking, than KA, but not as big as Academy. But Fujimi doesn't push kits outside of Japan that much, so I'm not sure. There's a whole thing going on here. At this point, I have absolutely no idea who paid for this tooling to be cut in the first place. It's a neat thing. It's a motorcycle with a pickup bed, basically, and a cab to it, but I don't know whose it belongs to at this point. I thought it was Academy's, and the KA paid for it, but now Fujimi's running it, and the kit is identical to the T600 I have from Academy. So I'm not sure why there's this big gap again, unless there is an exclusivity agreement to Academy having the kit out there in their own boxing. Not that you could buy it anywhere other than South Korea, really, other than eBay, because it's not in stock anywhere else that I've seen. I guess, you know, so if you're interested in this and you want to wait for a Japanese release, which should technically speaking be a lot easier to get a hold of than dealing with some fly-by-night South Korean seller who's not going to give you any kind of recompense other than offering you $10, which wouldn't have even covered the shipping that I paid to get the kit here in the first place, yeah, you might want to wait for the Fujimi one. Maybe Fujimi will stick the cab in a little box the way KA did so that if your kit gets jostled in the mail, it doesn't immediately smash the cab. Um, so yeah, I mean, this is a to me this is like a doom tooling. Every single one of these I bought has had something wrong with it. The K360 I got was one of the first runs of the kit that has the chassis for this T600, which is a longer wheelbase, so I can technically, without chopping it up and doing it myself, build the kit because this thing is about an inch shorter, or the K360 is about an inch, real life inch, like you know, hold your knuckle to it inch, than the T600 is. So it's not just like oh shave a few millimeters off the back. No, the whole thing is completely out of skew that way. So I don't know. I have another K360 coming from a Japanese seller on eBay. My goal with that is hopefully that it has the right rear suspension tree in it because the later ones do, according to what I've been told. And I don't know how long this is, you know, who knows how long this has been sitting around. Maybe it's got the wrong suspension in it. My goal basically there is to get the kit, take the cab out of the kit, put it in the T600, take the suspension that's hopefully correct, and put it into the other one I have, and then sell that one for parts. You're not going to get a cab, you're not going to get rear suspension, but if you wanted a diorama, a pickup bed, and some motorcycle parts, there you go. I don't know. It's just anyway, I have nothing against Fujimi reissuing this. It's just kind of an interesting story to see it being reissued again through a third company. So one tool, three companies. One tool to rule them all, I guess. We're going to talk real quick here about some upcoming decals from Racing Decals 43. Usually I was trying to keep up with this stuff, letting you guys know about liveries, but it just became a thing where the decals were coming out at one point so fast that by the time I would announce them, they'd already be out, and then it was just easier for you guys to watch the other channel when I got them in stock, and you could just see them in person. But Eric Diego's got these 4 sets coming out at the end of the month. These should be available July 31st. Your mileage may vary. First up, you have the Arnage Racing. This is a Super GT, Japanese GT3 or GT300 class car. From 2018. So this is kind of cool because you don't see a lot of decals done for Super GT, mainly because of the licensing fees involved. I'm pretty sure that Diego can't actually sell these decals in Japan because they're not allowed, because they're not licensed, but maybe he does have the license on them. I'm not sure. I just know that was a problem that he has had in the past with the Z4 decals that he did for Super GT. Places like Hublink Japan and other retailers would not sell them because of the non-licensed nature of them. So there's that. Next up, you have an M6 from Turner Motorsports. This is the current 2021 IMSA GTD car. You can see it has sort of a taste of the crazy Turner graphics that are on that blue AWS Fanatic, America Challenge car that is completely blue wrapped, and this is sort of a little less on that. It's still got that blue wrap thing going on, but it's much less on the fact that it's just those cars are always yellow. So I'm trying to think of what race this belongs to specifically. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it is specific to one running of the car. It is a race that they won, so because they've won pretty much all the GTD rounds this year. I think we were at 5 or 6 rounds, and they've won 3, so they're about half and half right now, and they are in the lead of the points. So we'll see where that winds up when we get to Road Atlanta at the end of the year. Then you have this Multimatic Ford Mustang GT4. Of course, this is for a Tamiya kit, so it's kind of a very interesting paint scheme there. It'll be very interesting to see how the decals are divvied up here. I believe the colors are already available through Gravity in Spain because these are colors that were used on the last Multimatic car that he did. But how these are all divvied up in terms of what's decal and what's paint job, I've not seen the finished decals yet, so I couldn't tell you. But the car's sort of like split in the middle, in the front, and the back, and things like that. So it'd be very interesting masking job, perhaps, or maybe the decals will do a lot of the heavy lifting. We'll see. And then lastly, you've got this BMW Junior team. This year's sponsored by Shell Car. which was a Schnitzer Motorsports livery in the past, but Schnitzer did not run this year pretty much in GT3 because they're testing the new BMW GT4. Well, the BMW M4 GT3. The new BMW GT3 platform is now on the M4 because if you know your BMWs, a 3 Series is now a sedan, 4 Series is now a coupe. Obviously, the sedan can't be a GT3 car, so the M4 will be the new version. This car in the same livery also runs in the VLN NLS series, which I've talked to Diego and probably will be reissuing it with those that livery option later in the year, possibly, because the BMW Junior team for the Nordschleife specific, the Nürburgring specific race series, won 2 of the last 3 rounds of the season, so they're doing very well this year. The last round was won by Walking Horse. These guys unfortunately wrecked out in practice, so they didn't get a chance to run that round and see if they could three-peat, but they've been a very successful race team this year, and so that option will be out there for you folks. So that covers sort of the upcoming things to look forward to section. And so let's talk about kit releases. We have a couple of Hasegawa, one Tamiya, and then everything else will be as per the usual Aoshima. Over at Tamiya, we got the reissue of the Big Boy Scale 1/12 Martini Brabham BT44B from the 1975 Formula One season. This is just a straight reissue. I believe everything that comes with this kit came with it the last time in terms of photo etch and the turn metal trumpets for the intake and all those the wiring, all that stuff, because the wiring stuff came with one that I have. It's an original kit from the 19. No, I don't have an original one of these, but I have an original 935 big scale kit, and my original 935 big scale kit has tubing and plumbing and all that stuff. So I think all of that has always come with the kit. I believe the photo etch and the turn metal intake trumpets were added in the 2000s because a lot of these big scale kits were reissued after the turn of the century, as it were. And then that's just continued into this one. These are, of course, big boy scale and big boy prices. These tend to run in the $150 range. So, know what you're getting into, but you are getting a huge model. I mean, F1 cars are not that huge to begin with, but still, 1/12 scale, it's a huge model. And it does come pretty much complete. You could build a very, very nice model straight out of the box. I'm sure Top Studio and places like that have detail upsets for this if you really want to go that, $1,000 in extra mile, but you can build a very, good model out of this and have PE and turn metal and wiring and tubing and plumbing and all that stuff straight out of the box. So that is out there for you folks. Over at Hasegawa, we've got 2 of the July releases this week. First up, you have the Mazda Cosmos Sport with resin chin plow, a spoiler. It's a very just down, hanging out there kind of chin spoiler. It doesn't really have much of a shape or a aerodynamic benefit, I don't think. It just looks like somebody mounted one of those big snow shovels to the front of it, and that's why we've been calling it resin snowplow for the last 2 months. Otherwise, the kit is just a factory stock Mazda Cosmos. Nothing really to write home about there. The kit's been around since the mid-1990s. It's been reissued so many different ways and so many different guises that, yeah, I have nothing to say about the kit at this point. The resin plow chin spoiler is the new part. And then over in the racing department, I guess I should say, you have the Toyota 2000 GT in its 1968 SCCA sports car race package. So these are, as we mentioned, the Shelby prepped Toyota 2000 GTs when Toyota came over and thought they were just going to walk all over the SCCA in 1968. Had they not had their induction system changed by the SCCA at the whining of Porsche, that perhaps might have actually happened. However, that ended up reducing their horsepower and their acceleration, and they got, I think, 1 podium the entire year. Toyota was rather nonplussed about the entire event and took their toys and went back to Japan with them, so there was no follow-up year. You can build both cars out of this, both Scooter Patrick and Dave Johnson's, so there's blue decals for the other car and red decals for this. It is just a red outline, so you're going to have to paint the hood the primary color and try to get to match the decals, which is always a fun time, and the other livery to it is pretty basic. It does include new turn metal or white metal wheel knockoffs, because the wheel knockoffs they use in SCCA were somewhat larger than the ones that were used in the Japanese raced versions of these. So that is a new piece, new decals. Otherwise, it is a pretty much standard 2000 GT race kit. So that's out there for folks that are looking for that. Over at Aoshima, a couple of things here are going to be just straight restocks. So those are going to be the Mines, always my personal favorite tuner version of pretty much all the GTRs, but especially the R34. So you get because BBS, all the things, just the way it is. So you have the Mines version of the Skyline GTR R34, and then you have a reissue of their Nissan Silvia Super Silhouette. This was Japan's answer to Group 5 racing, but it was only a spec used in Japan. This is a real race car, but yeah, that's back out there. And then you have a reissue of the 1971 Nissan Skyline 2000 GTR. So this is the two-door Hakasuka, as it were. And then you have the original OG GTR, the 1970, and the four-door version. So yes, remember, your GTRs were originally sedans back in the day. Both of these are old kits from the 1980s. They're motorized chassis. Nominally, I'd say they're maybe a little bit better than the Fujimi counterparts, because Fujimi also makes a four-door 1970 GTR and a 71 Hakasuga. If you're going to make a Hakasuga GTR, you're going to get the Tamiya kit, let's be honest. But if you're comparing curbsides, I'd say that Aoshima's bodies are probably a little more correct. The interiors are kind of there, and the chassis, and both those examples are meh, motorized nonsense. So it'd be really nice to see somebody. To me, it's not going to do it, but it'd be nice to see Aoshima or Fujimi or a third party that doesn't exist yet go back and revisit some of these other Skylines from the 70s and the 80s and put real chassis underneath of them, because you can pretty much carry a lot of the suspension components and things like that over year to year without it really, becoming a problem. Do you put engines in them? I don't know. Once you get past the GTR phase, do you really want to build a four-cylinder, car? Probably not, but, it is what it is. And these kits are what they are in that sense. And then we get into this month's kits. There are a few of the July kits being released, and the two Tune Model Car offerings are up, and these are both new to the boxing. So these kits exist. They're not new, but they are new to the boxing. And you have the MCR Nissan 350Z, or they call it over there a Fairlady Z. So that's a little sort of tunerized version of their 350Z kit. I forgot to look to see if this has left-hand drive components in it or not, because the base kit does. Probably doesn't, because it's a JDM specific tuner. New hood in this, or not a new hood, but there's a different hood in this and a different rear spoiler, and front end setup and side skirts than you would get in the regular factory stock kit. And then the other one is the C West version of their FD3S RX-7. I think a lot of the parts in this also carry over into one of the initial D series FD3S RX-7s, which is probably why both these two kits exist. A few little bits and piece interchange here, and you have basically two models out of the same tooling. And so, yeah, again, just new to the boxing series. And then lastly this week, the first of the two Hong Kong taxis that we're going to get. This is a special edition. You can tell there by the SPO1 designation, meaning that this is not going to be a regular part of the catalog lineup. Doesn't mean it's necessarily run a limited edition and you got to go out and kick open the door of your local hobby shop or anything, but know that it's not part of the regular catalog. And that is the 1979 Datsun 22C diesel Hong Kong taxi. So, yeah, sold as a Datsun because Nissan only used in Japan at that time as far as the naming goes. All of the diesel logos and Datsun logos and things like that are all done with decals. I was hoping maybe you get a little PE for some of that, but unfortunately, it does not appear that you do. What is PE in this, because I mentioned it would have photo etch, are the Seat 5 taxi placards that go on the front and the back to let you know how many people the taxi will sit. There are also decals for those, which they, in the instructions, tell you to just glue to the grill, which would look ridiculous. You'd have to at least put them on a piece of plastic that looks like half a moon, right? But the PE parts are already painted, so literally you just have to glue them to the grill. You don't have to put the decals on them. It's not just a backing to them the way they are. This also does include Hong Kong backing plates for the license plates in PE as well. They showed just the Datsun plate on the front of the box art there in what we consider to be a U.S. spec license plate, but it's also the way Japan's license plates are in a rectangle, or in a more of a squared off rectangle like we use. Hong Kong used sort of a European style rectangle, the big long ones, and so there are correct license plates in here, and they are PE backing plates to use those more correct decals. The taxi light, I think, might also be new. Or it might be the taxi light out of the Japanese taxi version. I'm not sure. I've really sat down and compared the two. And there are also PE stainless steel rain gutters for the doors. They're not shown on any production photos of this. They're not shown on the box art. They're not shown on the box art sides. But yes, you do get, and you do have to bend them and fold them. So that'll be kind of a fun time. Because then also, what do you glue them to without making a huge mess of the outside of the car? But yeah, there's going to be, like I said, rain gutters. The things you can roll the windows down a little bit and get the air, but you don't get the rain. We would, they're all plexiglass for us now. Back in the day, they were, chrome stainless steel or chromed aluminum or whatever, and those are included in this kit. So that's kind of an interesting touch that wasn't mentioned anywhere. Body color is silver over red, and yeah. Aoshima sold those, or their literature sold those as being famous in Hong Kong cinema. So I guess the only way to really prove that one way or the other would be to go to rent a whole bunch of old Hong Kong sort of kung fu exploitation, if you want to call it that, films, and see if you see any of those in the background. I've talked to a few people in Hong Kong, and they said that, yes, it does very much resemble old Hong Kong taxis, but I'm not really sure why that, of all things, was picked to do as a subject piece. But I don't know, somebody somewhere, it's somebody's pet project, I bet you. It's something that already exists in the lineup, because there's no new plastic parts to that. All of those sort of baseline trim things were done for the police version and the taxi version in Japan of that car. So, hey, throw some new decals in here, a couple pieces of PE, and we'll call it a Hong Kong taxi. And like, okay, yeah, sure, okay. And then the other one's coming is going to be that Toyota taxi that they did a couple years ago. And again, it's going to be the same thing, I bet you. It's new set of decals, maybe some PE, and ta-da, new taxi. And, somebody convinced Aoshima internally to spend a few grand, and you get 2 new kits out of it. So it all works out. Somebody got what they wanted, and I guess we get what we want too. Anyway, I hope everybody had a great weekend. As of the filming of this video, you have just slightly more than one. Actually, no, as of today, watching this video, well, not watching this video, because who knows when it'll actually show up on YouTube, but as of filming this video today, there are 30 days until the IPMS NAT. So you are at 1 month. On Wednesday, it'll be 4 weeks. Whichever one makes your blood boil and tingle more, in the sense that you have not gotten your kit built for the NATs yet. Hope everybody had a great weekend. See you guys on the other side.